I want to begin by talking about impression formation, how we form impressions of others, and tell you a couple of interesting things about impression formation. The first one is, first impressions matter a lot. They matter a lot for different reasons. They might matter a lot because humans have, in general, a confirmation bias, such that once you believe something, other information is then encoded along the lights to support what you believe. So the classic study here was done by Kelly, where a guest speaker comes in, and some of the students received a bio describing the speaker as very warm, the other as, do not bring your paper up if you're coming in late, just at the end of class. Yeah. Others got a bio saying, thanks Eric, the speaker was rather cold. And then it turned out later on, when they're asked for their impressions of the speaker, people are very much biased by what they first assumed. If I'm described to you as a vivacious and creative person, and you see me, and I'm all kind of bouncing around and everything, you could then confirm this as, look how vivacious and creative he is. If I'm described as somebody who drinks too much, you might think he's an alcoholic. If it's described as somebody who's insecure and nervous, you could interpret my activity as nervous twitches. Your first impression sets a framework from which you interpret everything else. This was the theme of an excellent movie called Being There, starring Peter Sellers. And a running joke of the movie Being There was that the main character, the character Chauncey Gardner, somehow through accident had the reputation for being a genius. But while in reality he was actually mildly retarded. But he would go around and people would ask him his opinions on politics, and he would say things like, well, I like being in the garden. And because of his reputation as a genius, people said, wow, that's very profound, I wonder what he means. Or people would talk to me, just stare at him and say, and people would say, would be intimidated by his bold and impetuous stare when actually he just totally didn't know anything. So first impressions can shape subsequent impressions, not just when dealing with people. A little while ago, there was a sniper, actually a pair of snipers, killing people in Washington. And the one thing everybody knew about it was there was a white van involved. Turned out there was no white van at all. But in the first incident, somebody saw a white van. This was reported in all the newspapers. Then every other incident, people started seeing the white vans. They started looking for them. They started to attend to them. So first impressions matter hugely when dealing with people because it sets the stage for how we interpret everything else. A second finding, building on the first, is that we form impressions very fast, very quickly. And this is a literature known as thin slices. The idea is you don't have to see much of a person to get an impression of what they are. The first studies done on this were actually done on teachers, on university professors. So university professors have teaching evaluations. You could use this as a rough and ready approximation of what students think of them. So what you do then is the question that these people were interested in, Rosenthal and Ambati, two social psychologists, were how long do you have to look at a professor to guess how popular a teacher he is? So they showed these clips for a full class. Do you have to see him for a full class? Do you have to see him for 2 classes? Do you have to see him for a half hour? How long do you have to be around a person to see him to estimate how good a lecturer that person is? And the answer is 5 seconds. So after clips of 5 seconds, people are pretty good at predicting what sort of evaluations that person will have. Remember the Big Five, how we evaluate people on a Big Five? Well, you have a roommate, and your roommate you could evaluate on the Big Five. You've had a lot of experience with him or her. How much time do you need to evaluate somebody on the 5 dimensions of personality? Answer is, again, not much time at all. After very brief exposures to people, people are very accurate at identifying them on the Big Five. One of the more surprising findings concerns sexual orientation, or gaydar. That's not a scientific term. But the same psychologists were interested in studying how quickly you can, if at all, how long does it take to figure out somebody's sexual orientation? Now what they did was, they were clever psychologists, so they set it up in a study where the people did not know sexual orientation was at issue. So for instance, they may be people like you who filled in a form. One question along a very long form was your sexual orientation, and then you're sitting down being interviewed by somebody, and your interview is being filmed. And then other people are shown, who don't know you, are shown the film. And the finding is that people, based on thin slices, are quite good at detecting sexual orientation. Everybody's good at it. Gay people are better at it than straight people. And again, you don't need much time. You just need about a second. You see somebody for about a second, you can make a guess. You're far from always right. In fact, you're just a bit better than chance. But you are better than chance at telling sexual orientation. So these two facts taken together, thin slices and the power of first impressions, means that just by a brief exposure to somebody, it shapes so much of how you're going to think about them in the future.